Automobiles made in China are now subject to some pretty hefty import tariffs in the EU, and that includes all the ones made by the Chinese manufacturers like BYD, Li, NIO, and others, as well as cars from Tesla in Shanghai, and even Volkswagen and Stellantis vehicles. Joining me to discuss what this all means and what's going on is Jan from Tesla Fix, our man on the ground. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. By the way, if anyone can hear a fan in the background, it is because it is hot in my office.
Oh my God, 80 degrees Celsius?
Celsius, that's right. It's almost boiling in here. Yeah. It is toasty. So if you hear a fan, I am not turning it off. I will roast. And without butter and rosemary, it's not appealing, no. I assure you. So this was something that you saw coming a year ago when they were proposing it. It's why you bought your Model 3 when you did. You knew it was coming. I didn't believe it. I thought surely the green transition was more important than protectionist policies, and I was wrong. They have come into place, and what we're looking at is something like this here. Tesla expects to raise Model 3 prices in Europe after higher EU tariff on China EVs. Said Thursday they'll have to increase the price. Our costs just went up significantly. We're not throwing these cars away. If they don't raise prices, that would look like dumping, which is an illegal trade practice. European Commission, the EU's executive arm, this week said it was raising tariffs from China to the 27-nation bloc of European nations. Yeah. And so tell me what's going on here.
I was right. So I was right, yeah.
Jan was right.
Yeah, that's why I've bought my Model 3 Highland, actually, because I knew that they are tinkering around with those tariffs. And yeah, it was in the news cycle a little bit, then it just slipped under the radar a little bit, and suddenly the decision was already made. And then everybody started to scramble around and trying to figure out what will happen. And many people actually didn't believe that, okay, no, maybe Tesla is an exemption or something. And I'm like, no, they're not. And that's what we're seeing now. Yeah.
Yeah, and weirdly, when they started this proposal, when they started investigating these Chinese companies for having an unfair advantage, Tesla was not party to it, and Tesla sued, saying, no, you need to include us. This absolutely, I get that you like us a little bit more than them, but we are subject to the ruling, therefore we should be subject to it as well. If we look at other manufacturers, we're seeing China-built EV NIO says it may have to raise prices in Europe. And may, again, bit of an understatement, they have to choose whether they're going to lose more money or not sell cars at all. And I don't believe that NIO, BYD, MG, and others are losing money on a per unit basis. Some of those companies are not profitable, but that's in large part because of the cost of all the CapEx and OpEx to build the factories and all the R&D. European regulators confirmed that these duties, which have been lightly tweaked to range from 17.4 to 37.6%, will come into effect on Friday. And this is a done deal.
Yeah. And
everyone.
I don't know. So what I've heard from the also German media and things that I've heard here is that the German legacy car manufacturers actually don't want this kind of trade war going on, of course, because they are heavily reliant on China as well. For example, VW sells, I think, more than 50% of their cars actually in China. So it's heavy for them to lose this kind of market. That's why they're super scared. And we've already heard that the Chinese government are tinkering around now or discussing different import taxes on, for example, meat and also wine or stuff like this. So this will hit Europe as well. So now it's going to go back and forth. They will be looking at different things they can raise the tariffs for. And so maybe it's important for everybody to understand the reasoning why these import tariffs are made or why the European government did that.
I've got this one is, I just wanted to show this real quick, which leads into what you're about to help us understand. EU inspects Tesla Giga Shanghai for individual duty rates. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So they raised the rates actually to 10% import tax, or tariffs, import tariff, but individually, additionally, on top of that, there comes the individual rate, and this depends on the incentives actually the company gets from China itself, because China has such a huge incentive structure that they incentivize, for example, battery production, additionally, electric vehicle car manufacturing and stuff like this. They have a lot of incentives on different parts, and they have so many that it makes the European car manufacturers at a disadvantage somehow, or they cannot compete in their own home turf. That's why they need to raise the rates. And depending on how many incentive which company gets, for example, BYD gets a lot of incentives because they produce batteries as well. So this is a huge cluster of incentives that they try to mitigate or stop or kind of work around there. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, to your point, you look at a company like Seat. You say, well, how could Seat build great things? Well, the answer is they have the backing of Volkswagen. And then you say, well, how can these little Chinese companies make great things? And the answer is they have the backing of an entire nation. And that is a little different than having a parent company when you have a literal government as your backer. Some of these manufacturers, if we look here, we'll see that this, for example, it appears that Tesla has received the lower rate of 20.8. So not the 37%, but a 20% hike is still quite large. Some of the companies are getting much worse rates than that.
Yeah, they get. I mean, it's almost 40% in some cases, which is insane. This means, it's always double the price, and this also means for them, there are different cost structures as well. If they, for example, sell the car for a different pricing, I think then the rates also change a little bit. It depends on that as well. So there's a lot of factors, way more complicated than I can wrap my head around it right now. But so
this proposes challenges for companies like Volkswagen and Stellantis. Stellantis is leaning heavily on Chinese partners to make electric vehicles that they can sell in Europe. And it doesn't matter what brand name is on it. It matters where they were actually made and who is backing them. And it's a crazy idea to think of the Chinese government subsidizing Volkswagen's profits. But if that's what they need to do to expand their market, they are clearly willing to do that.
Yeah, it's the same with, for example, the incentives that you have in the US for the battery production. That's why many companies actually wanted to go there to get this incentive to expand their battery production on the American soil at least. Maybe South America or Mexico as well. So that sense, but still there. Yeah, that's why they attract companies to their. And
that's a very big question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very big question. The U.S. is heavily subsidizing battery manufacturing. Does that mean that if a Model 3 or Y is made in the U.S. with Giga Nevada built batteries and sold into Europe, it should be subject to the same protectionist policies because the manufacturer is getting a substantial federal rebate for building those, a direct subsidy. And then the question is, aren't European manufacturers also getting some kind of subsidies and benefits? I know there's tax credits that were offered for manufacturing batteries in Europe. Where do we draw the line?
Exactly. And I think it's a risky game they are playing there because that's why the car manufacturers don't like it, because they don't want to lose the Chinese market.
In both directions. They don't want to lose the market into which to sell nor from which to export. And I feel like the politicians may have gotten a little bit out ahead of themselves on this one. We can also see that the market is not exactly jazzed. Chinese EV stocks, NIO, Li, XPEV, XPEV, Xiaopev, on alert as... I don't know, man.
It should be Xiaopeng, I think. Or Xiaopeng.
Maybe. And by the way, for those, we have been saying Xiaopeng, but apparently in Western markets, they have branded themselves as XPeng. So I will accept both. But if I was an investor in these companies and counting on growth into external markets, I would be concerned. I had an interview with Darren Jung, who you met in Austria.
Yep.
And he was telling me that we were discussing other brands of automobiles in EVs in Southeast Asia. And those Chinese brands are not really making inroads yet. They're still primarily just in China, BYD being the one notable exception. But most of those companies have very little presence outside of mainland China. So that was pretty interesting. I did find some information on some of the breakdowns. And like you said, it's a question of how heavily involved the government is in subsidizing you. 17 to 38% on top of the 10%. You were right on that. Yep. Tariffs cover imports of new electric vehicles. They do not cover hybrids, nor do they cover individual EV inputs such as batteries. So it doesn't matter if you were using European batteries in your China-built car, wouldn't help. And if you look at some examples, BYD at 17%, somehow lower than Tesla, Geely at 20%, SAIC at 38%, because this is a state-owned company. SAIC, Shanghai Auto something.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you think Tesla might start building Model 3s in Berlin?
So this is an interesting question, and I was thinking about this for months, I think. And my answer to that is yes, I would say so, because it depends. So we had the plans for the compact car also arriving someday in Europe. Now we have the robotaxi announcement. So the robotaxi was pushed further, was switched with actually before that, Tesla wanted to build actually the compact car and then build the robotaxi. That was kind of the plan, or we don't know, but that's what we've expected at first. But now we have the confirmation that on August 8th, there will be, of course, the Cybercab reveal. And this means that the capacity for the northern expansion, I think, could be also utilized maybe for Model 3 or something, or on the Model Y line, maybe they can adapt it a little bit to build the Model 3 since they share a lot of parts, but that might just come with the Juniper update. If it's still real, let's see, but I think it is, and I think then it will be sharing way more parts with the Model 3 Highland that we have for the refresh. So when this happens, I think they might produce Model 3 as well in Giga Berlin. That's my guess. Yeah.
I think it's reasonable. I think if the import duty is 20 or 30% in total, it's problematic. You run out of margin. You run out of ability to sell the vehicle. Tesla's not necessarily doing all that great in the European market compared to previous years.
Yes.
And we will discuss that on a later show. I think all of this is very strange timing and very unfortunate, and a protectionist measure that I'm not convinced will have the desired outcome. But we will see, because that's not my perfect area of expertise. Hey guys, would you do me a favor? Would you head over to Tesla Fix and see what Jan is up to? Jan was gracious enough to join us in Austria for the X takeover, or rather allow me to join him. He joined us at the summer meetup in Muskegon. Him and Robin from Robin TV went all over the U.S., experiencing a lot of things for the first time. FSD, the Cybertruck.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing the original Roadster in person, and not one but a few of them. It's very exciting.
It was. And one more thing, one plug I have.
Please.
So please look at my channel. I know it's buried for a month almost now. I'm sitting on footage gems also from Austria as well. I will be uploading them more and more frequently. I hope I can get to edit, because it's very difficult with work, because when I was visiting the US, of course, I still have a day job, and when I came back, hell was breaking loose, so I couldn't edit. But lots of videos are about to come, so don't think my channel is abandoned. It's still there, but check it out.
It's you reach a point where you've just got so much footage, it's hard to get your head around it. And by the way, I would like to point out, we did not coordinate our outfits. This, I think, is just the the
We didn't?
cult attire. Mine
Wait
is
a second,
actually.
but you wrote
mine
me
is
that we
actually
should
from-
wear.
from TeslaCon, Florida,
Oh,
a year
nice.
and a half ago. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I don't often have a chance to wear T-shirts, but it's very hot. So I appreciate us wearing our cult uniform. That's great.
Yeah. Join the cult.
Join us, won't you? Join us. So in the comments, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Leave it, I beg of you. Everybody else, like, subscribe, do the usual. You know how it works. And as a reminder, this is my full-time job. So if you can support me in any way you can, it is hugely appreciated, but not required. It is not mandatory. Yeah, everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots in the thrilling part 2 of this video.